Go ahead and get started. I call the meeting of the Logansport Board of Public Works and Safety to order. This is Wednesday, June 18th, 2014. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Carol Sue.
Chris Armstrong.
Here.
Ron Miller.
Present.
And the mayor is absent today.
Approval of minutes for June 11th, 2014.
I've reviewed the minutes, and I will make a motion we approve as presented the minutes of the June 11th, 2014 meeting.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approval of claims in the amount of $389,109.74.
I've reviewed the claims. I would make a motion we approve as presented the claims in the amount of $389,109.74.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approval of licenses. We have one for Mike Gust, electrician.
I would make a motion we approve the license request for electrician Mike Gust as presented.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any changes to the agenda? Visitor comments. Okay, old business, code enforcement officer. You know what? I left all these pictures on my desk.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Under old business, you have got in your packet the property 1208 Michigan Avenue. This property has been an ongoing battle for some months now. It was originally scheduled for 2 weeks ago. I met personally and talked with the property owner. Met and personally talked with the property owner 2 weeks ago and told her I'd give her 2 more weeks, which the board did grant. The pictures that are in front of you were taken yesterday morning. My recommendation would be that we order a cleanup on it.
Is a motorcycle licensed? Or
No.
motorbike or whatever?
No, I will have to run that through the vehicle ordinance.
Run through the process with me, George, one more time. When was notice served?
We originally started working with this back last November, and then I went off for my surgery, and it kind of fell through the cracks, so we had to start everything all over. This round, if you look, I believe the
May
first
9th.
letter went out May 9th,
Mm-hmm.
and then the notice to appear, what's the date on that?
May 20th.
May 20th was the notice to appear. I have spoke with her personally at her residence at least 3 separate occasions concerning the violations.
Is there anyone here for 1208 Michigan Avenue? No. What do you want to do?
I make a motion to clean it up.
Second. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Forgot what I was doing. All right, next one.
Next is 1401 Astor Street. This one was here a month ago. We, at the request of the mayor, gave them a 1-month extension. The mayor had encouraged them. They have a lot of scrap metal and stuff like that in their yard. The mayor had encouraged them to get with some friends and offer to clean it up with their friends and haul the metal off. They have made some improvement, but they still have quite a ways to go. I would ask for a 2-week extension on this one.
I'm fine with that. I make a motion for 1401 Astor Street to give a 2-week extension.
Second.
George, if it's not cleaned up by then, are you recommending cleanup?
Yes.
So that we don't have to bring this back?
Yes.
Okay, then my motion is 1401 Astor Street. We'll have a cleanup in 2 weeks, which would be July 2nd, if it is not already cleaned up by the homeowner.
Second, yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And you have one more?
Yes, one more.
Oh, there wasn't anybody here for 1401 Astor, was there?
Okay. One more, Wayne and Janice Schroeder, 1013 Daisy Street. They are here. This is, I want to commend them. It's been a long process for them, and I know they work, and they have a son with some disabilities, and it's a lot of work for them, but I do want to commend them because they have really done a good job at cleaning their property up and turning it around. I want to personally thank them, and I talked with Mr. Schroeder just a little bit ago, and his intentions are to build a garage or anything else that he may have on his property, but my recommendation would be that we clear this and remove it from the records. Mr. Schroeder, if you have anything that you would like to say, feel free to address the board. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for getting your property cleaned up. We appreciate it. I make a motion that we clear 1013 Daisy Street.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
New business, building commissioner. Oh, yeah. I make a motion to...
Code enforcement officer report.
Do you
Second.
want to do that now under old business, or do we need to wait until it comes up under new business?
Oh, do you have more to bring up?
No, I don't have anything else to bring up. If you want to clear it now,
We can clear it
fine.
now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Good morning.
Good morning.
I have 5 properties to put in front of you this morning, and all 5 properties are based around property maintenance ordinance 97-32. To clean up some of the individual Michael Shively, rental property at 317 12th Street. He did contact me yesterday, and he has registered his rental properties with the city as of yesterday afternoon. So I would request that we remove Michael Shively off the list because he has satisfied the ordinance requirements by registering the property. The properties owned by Evelyn Alvarado, Joseph, and Cecilia Martindale. Those properties were sent a notice a notice of inquiry, actually, and a directive that if the properties are truly a rental property in the city limits of Logansport, that they're required to register the property per ordinance 97-32. 30 days after that letter was sent, with no response to that request, they were sent a letter of notice to appear in front of the Board of Public Works, which was sent out 12 days before the appearance date, giving them a second opportunity to comply with ordinance 97-32. I do not believe either property owner, Evelyn Alvarado or Joseph and Cecilia Martindale, are in attendance at this meeting today. So at this point, those 2 properties we are basing, or we're going to base our assumption that these 2 properties are rental properties in the city of Logansport, based on the fact on the tax auditor's sheet, this property is not listed as the primary residence of the property owner. So we base that assumption that is a rental property. So at this point, those 2 properties, I would ask the board permission to move forward with property maintenance ordinance 97-32 in a penalty section, which allows the city to apply a $50 minimum per day fine on these properties until the properties are registered per ordinance 97-32. I would send a 10-day notice out to the owners, giving them a 10-day period to reconcile this before the fine is imposed, but at that point we would start imposing a minimum $50 a day fine to get it registered. And if that fits with the board for those two property owners, Evelyn Alvarado and Joseph and Cecilia Martindale, I would request permission to move forward in that fashion with those two properties.
So if they respond to 10 days, the penalty, the 50-day penalty doesn't go into effect until 10 days after notice was served with this letter, right?
That would be my approach.
So this would be the third notice, hey, you got to do something, or, and have you been by the properties? Are the properties inhabited, do you know?
Yes. Yes, the properties are occupied.
Okay.
Just to kind of illustrate, I mean, this is a process that we're doing on multiple locations within the city. I mean, on our ongoing, between Mike Rush and myself, on our ongoing process of inspecting and registering rental properties in the city, this same process is done on many, many properties on a weekly basis. Historically, we see that some of them, when they receive the initial notice, will respond with a phone call, I'll get in and get it done. Some will wait until they get the second notice with the appearance requirement, then they will get it done. But those that don't, then we are going to be required to bring them in front of the board, as we are today, to ask permission to go to the next step.
I make a motion that you proceed with your notice as stipulated in the ordinance.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next property I'd like to talk about is the property at 2030 East Market Street, which is, per the tax auditor sheet, is owned by Mr. Gerald Birch. Between property maintenance ordinance 97-32 as well as code enforcement work that Mr. Franklin is doing, this property has been an ongoing issue for both our departments for over a year. On this property, I physically hand-delivered a rental property registration form to a person living at the residence who was representing himself as a property manager. And this property still was not registered as a rental property. Mr. Birch, the owner of the property, was issued a letter alerting them that it is a rental property in the city. They're required to register it. 30 days later, he was issued a notice to appear in front of the Board of Public Works. That notice was issued 12 days before this date, which fits by statute, and we have had no contact with anybody. I personally have been there 2 times in the last 2 weeks and knocked on both the front door and the back door and have had no response. My recommendation on this property is that, or my opinion first on this property, is that we have an owner that is turning his head to all sorts of condition requirements in the city of Logansport. I would recommend that we be allowed to issue a 10-day notice to vacate that property based on the fact of code enforcement violations as well as being in violation to ordinance 97-32.
Mr. Drinkline, can you tell us what code enforcement violations there are?
The property, I don't know them verbatim, but from memory, there has been repeated notices of rubbish being thrown over the fence in the back alley. There is a large amount of debris and wood in the backyard behind the fence. They've been notified on the mowing ordinance in the community for not having the grass mowed. They've been noted on ordinance or code enforcement for rubbish and debris in and around the backyard unrepeated. I will note we've also had 2 of the surrounding neighbors physically come and speak to the mayor and speak to myself about the condition and the lack of care this property is affording to them.
All right, so you feel this is an unsafe premises because it's a hazard to public health and or a public nuisance?
Yes, I do.
Is it also a fire hazard?
I don't know if I could stress that unless we could say that the debris and the rubbish in the backyard poses a fire threat.
And the debris still there?
Yes, it is.
All right, do we think it's dangerous to a person or property due to the violation of these ordinances?
Yes, to the general public, yes.
Okay. I think you've met the definition of an unsafe building 3 different ways on that. Our ordinance allows the building commissioner to issue an order requiring action that can include vacating an unsafe building. So I think you're within the law if you wish to do that.
So that would be my request.
So you'd send another notice, 10 days. If they don't respond, then you would issue the unsafe building order, or whatever it's called. Is that correct? Or
That is correct. I would issue a final order saying that on this date and time, we will have utilities disconnected at the property, and they have to vacate immediately, and if they do not, then they'd be in violation of trespassing, is my interpretation.
By the law, once that order is issued, they have 10 days to remedy it before the order can take effect.
Well, I would make the motion that we approve the building commissioner's recommendation of unsafe building at 2030 Market Street.
Second. Any further discussion?
None.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The last property I'd like to talk about is property located at 1118, 1120 North Street. We had approached this property, and the records show that this property has been in discussion points with the building department, code enforcement for 4 years. I personally have been dealing with this property for 2 years in our records. It is a at the time, it was a rental property. It was occupied, and it has been cited on numerous times for code violations under Property Maintenance Ordinance 97-32. The dilemma as it sits today for my department is that yesterday afternoon, the property ownership transferred hands. The previous owner, who I have on notice to appear today, Pauline Dowdy, is no longer the property owner. According to the auditor's sheet, the property owner now is Priscilla Carbajal of that same address, 1118, 1120. The property was issued a violation notice back on February 19th with an order to comply by April 11th. Mike Rush, the property inspector, re-inspected on April 11th. And out of the 14 violations that were found on February 19th, 5 of the violations had been dealt with, which in my opinion were the minimal level of requirement of effort to get done. Mike and I revisited the property again on 2 different occasions, and we had assurances that work was going to be done, and nothing had been completed as of our re-inspections. At that point, I made a determination that we were going to issue a notice to appear. The notice to appear was issued 12 days before today's date. The previous property owner, Pauline Dowdy, had called me this morning to inform me that the property had been sold, or the ownership had been transferred to the current occupants of the home. The current owner was not required to appear today because obviously she was not the owner at the day of notice. So at this point I would have to ask the city attorney, what, if any, rights do we have to enforce the inspection violations for the new owner? One point that I would like to make, and it's a similar event that I would hope we could follow. When the property ownership was transferred, the property taxes were not required to be brought current. This property is currently 2 years behind on its property taxes. I spoke to the auditor this morning, and she said that's allowed to happen as long as the new owner is aware and takes responsibility for the tax debt. The taxes are not required to be paid off at transfer of ownership. I would wonder and ask, can we assume these same rights underneath Ordinance 97-32, that when an owner is cited for violations of the code and the new owner is fully aware of those violations and takes responsibility for the property, that they also take responsibility for those code violations as well. Is there a similarity or a like condition that can be applied here? I'll be the first to say I'm not sure if this can still be listed as a rental property under Ordinance 97-32, but the code violations are related to the International Building Code conditions and not strictly to a local ordinance.
All right, I'm going to suggest we handle this property in much the same way that we handled the last one. The building commissioner is entitled to inspect any property in the city, but you have to give a 72-hour notice in order to do that. I'm going to ask you as well, do you feel like this is an unsafe building? Do you think that this building is a fire hazard?
Yes.
Because you've been inside it and you've seen that the electric is not up to code.
Yes.
And that which could cause a danger for the occupants and or firefighters who respond to put out a fire.
Yes.
You think it's a hazard to public health?
Yes.
You think it's a public nuisance?
Yes.
Okay, and how is it a hazard to public health and how is it a public nuisance?
Well, the public safety is the debris and the structural condition of the exterior home. You can see portions of the home in the pictures where the actual chimney section is separating from the itself and ready to collapse.
Right. You think that that impaired structural condition makes the property unsafe to a person or to other property nearby?
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as the public nuisance, we have on record letters and notices from abutting property owners that for years have complained about the condition and the way this property is kept and how it affects the neighboring homes in the community.
All right, well, we can issue an order to vacate an unsafe building. There are several requirements in the ordinance that are also in the state statute that notice has to contain, and I can go over that with you. You probably already know it. We can also issue a notice that we're going to inspect in 72 hours, and you give them 10 days to repair all the defects, or they will have to vacate the property regardless of whether they're tenants or whether they're owners, or whether the property changes hands again in between now and the time that order is enforced. Once we issue the order, it doesn't matter who owns it or who lives there. If the dangerous conditions are not rectified, no one will be allowed to live there regardless of the legal status of the property.
If it fits with the profile, what I would like to follow is that we'll issue a 72-hour notice to reinspect. Once that inspection is done, we'll allow the 10-day period of time to do the repairs. And at that point, in the same notice, we will notify that if it's not completed within the 10-day period, that a notice to vacate is also coupled with the 10-day period.
I think that's within the law.
Okay, thank you.
And just for my information, looking at the pictures, hearing your testimony, if you will, about this piece of property, there's no way they can fix this piece of property realistically in 10 days. Correct?
If they continue to approach it the way they have historically in 2 years, you're absolutely correct. Is it physically possible to do it within 10 days? I believe it would be if they do a concerted effort. It would take a tremendous effort to be done, though. And to be honest with you, if we issued the 10-day notice, the way that Mike and I work, if they call back and say, listen, I can't get it done in 10 days, can you give me 20 days? Mike and I both would agree, I'm going to speak for Mike, and we would both agree that that extension is certainly allowable. All we ask is a movement forward to a correct plan.
Is anyone in the room here for that property? How about that young married couple there in the back? Guess not.
So I would like to ask for that to occur.
And summarize just succinctly for me what you're asking us to do.
Okay, what our office is asking to do is that we will issue a 72-hour notice to re-inspect the property to the new property owners. Once we issue that notice, we will perform the inspection. We will create a list of items that have to be corrected to bring the structure into compliance with Ordinance 97-32 as well as the Unsafe Building Code and the IC Code. If the property is not completely remodeled or corrected within a 10-day period, we will then issue a that 10-day notice will also be an automatic issue for vacate at the end of the 10-day period.
Okay, I'll make the motion that, and correct me if I have this wrong, but that we authorize the building commission to proceed with the 72-hour notice of reinspection, that the building commissioner will provide the owner a list of items that must be corrected and given 10 days notice in which to make those corrections, and at the end of 10 days and upon proper reinspection, if those items have not been corrected, that you would issue, what follows next?
An order for immediate vacate.
Immediate vacation. That's my motion. That cover it all?
Technically, we issue the order that you're going to vacate in 10 days.
Vacate in 10 days?
But they have 10 days to repair all of the things that are listed. If they repair them, they can stay. If they don't repair them, by law, they will have to vacate.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Motion to approve the building commissioner's report, if we fail to do that.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Next is police chief, and I don't think anybody is here for him. Fire chief.
Good morning.
Hello.
I submitted my monthly report for May. Any questions or anything? Nothing out of the unusual.
What's the cost of fuel today under contract?
The diesel, we didn't go under contract. Last year, we didn't do very good with contract, so this year, and I've been following it, we've been really doing well. We get a discount already, and
So when did you enter into the contract for the fixed price?
with last year, we entered into one at for the whole year.
And when?
When? I'm not sure what.
January, February, October, November?
It was in the spring. I mean, I'm not sure when it was, but we did it for the
So are you
remainder
still
of the
getting
year.
fuel at the same price you were contracted for?
No, the price varies, but I watched the price when we contracted, and I kept track of it, and we really never saved any money. And they'll tell you it really doesn't necessarily save you money. It just kind of locks you in in case gas prices went to $5 a gallon. But with diesel, it didn't save us any money last year, so I didn't do one this year.
I make a motion to approve the fire chief's report.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, Mark. Board member comments.
None.
Miscellaneous business including ADA Section 504 compliance and concerns, and any matters not already considered.
None.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.